What I'm going to do is to give you some thoughts on Don Norman's new book, which is called Design for a Better World. It's a book that I discovered only a few months ago, but until a year ago, all the word usability meant to me was the ease of use of software. I used to measure usability often using the 5Es because it was the simplest method. Effective, efficient, engaging, error tolerant, and easy to learn. That's what a piece of software must be. But one day I found myself in a spacious metro station in Athens where everything was wrong. The fact that I was in back pain made me react emotionally, and that was for good for me. In this photo, you can see the entrance to the station, but immediately you can see if you want to go to the airport, how do you go there? Line 1 or line 2? Now, the electronic displays with the vital information, which is time, train, destination, were off. All the clocks were out of sync. Many of them were out of order. There were no maps on the platform. So I had to ask how to go to the airport. Unfortunately, I found a Chinese passenger who showed me the direction, said that way. I was angry, but there was no place to express or publish this lack of usability complaints that I had. And that's a pity because our life is full of them, full of complaints, because things do not work as they should. What was missing was not only a site for citizens' complaints, but also a lack of metrics. I didn't know how to measure the usability of a non-software system. The 5Es were written specifically, and all the bibliography talks about how to measure the usability of a software system. And why do we need to measure? But it's obvious, especially for people who work in the shipping. If we can't measure, we cannot manage. In my opinion, the 5Es, which measure the usability of software applications, could be applied to the evaluation of the metro station usability or any other system using exactly the same criteria. So I wrote an article about this, and I presented it to a mixed audience of scientists and artists. But I got no comments at all. So I was discouraged and insecurity crept in, and I thought that I did not have the right to do this. But slowly, I changed my mind. How? I read Don Norman's book, Design for a Better World. And as with other books, Don stretched my mind and reassured me that this could be done and should be done. Because he actually asks all designers to take a more energetic role in order to correct the situation before it is too late. I don't know if I have the time to go on and describe everything that I wanted with my slides, but Don Norman is not talking about software at all in this book. He is concerned with design in general. And all of us here, more or less, we are designers. We design things. And even if we do not design software, think about in 5 years' time, everything will be in your hands, will contain some sort of software. Software is embedded everywhere now. Norman says that the world is a mess. We see it with the climate change. From collapsing social structures to the climate crisis has been millennia in the making and can be traced back to the erroneous belief that the Earth's resources are infinite. The key to change is human behavior. So this book presents an eye-opening diagnosis of where we've gone wrong and a clear prescription for making things better. He proposes a new way of thinking, one that recognizes our place in a complex global system where even simple behaviors affect the entire world. Design, he says, is a human activity that has transformed the whole planet. Everything we see around us is artificial. Even the trees outside are artificial, meaning that somehow they were designed by humans. One important detail here, everything was designed, but not necessarily by designers. And this is the key point here. We might think that we are designers because we studied somehow design principles, but designing software. We do not know how to design other things. But other people, many kinds of engineers, for example, keep designing things without using the tools that we have learned. And they do not know anything about usability testing, for example. This is the reason, maybe, that the world is in a mess. So I'm going to rush here. No. In a few words, Norman urges us to reconsider our approach to design. It is not just about aesthetics or functionality. It's about the impact of design on people, society, and environment. He's not talking anymore about human-centered design, but humanity-centered design. That is, our task widens a lot now. We have to consider the whole of the planet in everything that we design. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, please read Norman's book.
I want to make a comment that you haven't said that you instigated this chain of conferences of the 5,000 members.
Yesterday, we were told that Tasos is the instigator of this group of 5,000 members. Tell us a little bit more how you got it started. What was your discussion with Professor Mary Max?
Well, it started as Professor Maris said yesterday. We met because these issues were in my mind. How exactly? I was suffering listening to users who could not do their job. And I said to myself at some point, this is not the kind of work that I like. I want to be a creator, creating software, changing the job, introducing software where things will be easier for the people, but not listening to their complaints. At that time, I did not know anything, the word to describe this and to look for help. So I called a friend of mine and said, how would you describe this situation? What is missing in my department? And he said, look for the word usability. And that's how I started looking for the word usability. I Googled the term and I found 1.5 million occurrences. And I said, my God, I know nothing about what is usability. So I studied, and then I realized, and then I fell on World Usability Day and said, I thought that this is something that we must start doing in Greece. So, and the same night, I listened to a radio broadcast where I saw Professor Makris talking about users and their rights and their complaints. And that's how it all started. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tasos. It's an incredible story indeed. Any other questions? Now that it's here, okay, so he's here. So we can ask what happened back then, even more, to squeeze out. Yes, I mean, indeed, design for all, it's a big word. I mean, even this morning, we tried to a bit frame the challenge, okay, so what it means for all. But in reality, is how can you think as a designer? So it's a matter of how you change your mindset. And my question, since it is here, it's a rather industrial track, I would say, is I would like just to hear whoever wants to share from their point of view, from their industry, from their applications, how do they relate usability vs industrial constraints, product requirements, not only development, but also in relation to functionalities that resonate to the industry per se, to the context of doing business. Is there anyone who would like to share a bit? Because this is two different things. Okay, usability is supposed to be out. It's your designer, your creator. Creativity not necessarily complies or aligned with real life applications that they might come and they might be defined from a different business standpoint. So the question is, how do we close this gap? How do we address it? Are we there? Are we not? So this is, yes, Mr. Liras.
We found that one of the biggest problems is the project. You mentioned that making a project, and I'll just stick to how usability fits with executing a project. We are a software company in the marine domain, so we don't do projects so much, but we've had many clients ask us for annexes that are like projects. The problem with a project is that you are being given requirements for, let's say, some sort of functionality. You're not given requirements or explanations of why the user can or cannot execute the use cases that the user wants to execute. It takes 5 to 10 years to work out whether it was a success and whether the user can actually execute the processes. So the idea of a project and usability are in opposite directions. You can't possibly get a project to work and also be usable in all the hundreds or thousands of use cases that are going to be in there. So whereas you can try and you can bring in the best designers, but the issue is that they're not even the use cases are not compatible, so you can use the same usability ideas. So it's not going to happen. I think that the only way you're going to get usability is from the type of software that's there to stay, and the same people are there to keep improving it.
Thank you. Any other standpoints, please?
Hi, yeah, I would like to share just a striking experience that I had recently, and I told the story a couple of times today. But so I come from a research university, and I was a part of a project that involved some stakeholders of some athletes that they wanted us to design a solution for telemonitoring. So this was a 3-year project, and then by the end they said that if they knew that it would require so much from them to get involved as users, that they would not have done it. So their learning point for the future is to get involved in the end of the project. So that was a serious statement that we heard, and it just struck me that it contradicts everything that we try to learn and adopt, and that in the end, these processes create a lot of burden, and that users don't see the value in the same way. They think that if they give you requirements, that's enough. While these requirements sometimes contradict their real needs, and this comes out in usability and user experience tests, but they just don't give you the time to do it. And then if these users have specific profiles, like these athletes, for example, you can't replicate them with everyday people that have different bodies and are not super performing, or patients, for example. So that this is something that is, I think, a problem. That the willingness is there, but practically.
Thank you very much. That's another point, especially for requirement extraction usability testing, is the end user reach. Okay, so because many times there's a misunderstanding that a customer or any stakeholder is an end user. Okay, that in reality might not be. Or, and this is what I meant, that business requirement may be defined in a specific way because of some other priorities, market priorities, competitor priorities. But when it comes down to the person who will use a product, they might be included at the very end, that it's already late. Yeah, this is some practical, I think, industrial, mostly related challenges when it comes to the freedom of thought and creativity of design for bringing the best out of it. Any last comment? Yes.
How do you define industries? Because it's
Yes.
there are lots of industries. An ACI consultant is part of the industry. Maybe a problem owner, an innovator, a startup which has a new idea with no actual business. There are lots of industries. I know some of the guys like or Dr. Liras and other people in this room, but they own a problem. They have an industry is clearly defined, and they want to communicate with perhaps some practitioners. But I mean, industry is more than that. There are other cases of industrial requirements, and an issue that I think we need to consider a lot, and we see it often. If you see the big in the New York, the NASDAQ and the top industries in the world started with no problem to solve. They defined the problem, they provide the solution, and they convinced people to get into that. I mean, look at all the big ones: Amazon, Facebook, Google, etc. I mean, we have to think again what we mean by industry. What is an industry in these terms? What is the role of our community? Who do we talk to?
Thank you very much. Yes. Any other comments, standpoints? No. Great. Thanks a lot.